Welcome, everyone, to the Campus Pride Spotlight Series. My name is Ayla Azim. My pronouns are she and her, and I'm an intern with Campus Pride. For those who don't know, Campus Pride is a leading national nonprofit that empowers student leaders and campus groups working to create equitable college environments for LGBTQ+ students. You can learn more at campuspride.org. Today, I'll be interviewing the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee for the Campus Pride Spotlight Series. This series is all about what campuses offer today's LGBTQ+ students, our diverse genders and sexuality spectrum. We will highlight colleges and universities that are providing LGBTQ+ inclusivity on their campuses and learn more about their programs and services. I want to introduce to you the representatives from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee now. Hi, thank you both for being here. Please share with us your name, your role on campus, and your pronouns.
Hi, thanks for having us. We're really excited to be here. My name is Jen Murray. The pronouns I use are they, them, theirs, and she, her, hers. And the role that I have at campus is the director or the interim director for gender and sexuality, which encompasses work with our LGBTQ+ Resource Center and our Women's Resource Center.
Hello, yes, and thank you for having me as well. My name is Michael Gonzalez Jr. I use he, they pronouns. I am a two-time UWM alum, and I'm also a PhD student at the School of Public Health.
Nice. I should have my black and gold pom-poms. Woohoo! Go Michael! Two-time alum!
Woo woo! Pretty recent, yeah, good stuff.
I love it.
It's wonderful to have you both here today. You have a 5 out of 5 star rating on the Campus Pride Index at campusprideindex.org, so congratulations. To start out, tell us what are some things that are on your campus for LGBTQ+ life, and specifically, what does your campus do for LGBTQ+ students that creates an inclusive space?
Excellent. Well, we have an abundance of programming that we have done over the course of the years. I was actually so excited and honored to be part of this 20th anniversary celebration for Campus Pride because our campus was featured in one of the initial publications, the Advocate College Guide for Students that was done through Campus Pride. And so our campus has really been geared since its inception in 2002-2003. We have had a robust set of programs and services that have all been student-centered and student-led and created. And most of the programs have been moving with the times. And I think that our kind of champion work has been in both inclusive housing and most recently working with pronouns inclusion and doing work to ensure that students feel like they are being fully seen and recognized and appreciated for all of their being all of who they are on the UW Milwaukee campus. And so, yeah, I would say that those are some of the main things, and I think Michael and I will get a chance to talk a little bit more as we move through the interview.
Nice, amazing answer. Inclusive housing is very, very important. So what example can either of you share that signifies the importance of having a space on campus for an LGBTQ+ student?
Excellent question. So I will say Michael has had some recent advocacy that I think it would be helpful for you to talk about with our learning platform and what we use in terms of online learning, knowing that we've been in a virtual environment now for over a year and the significance of creating that inclusive environment, not only in physical spaces and on campus, but also creating that inclusive and welcoming environment when we're in a virtual reality.
Yeah, most definitely. So as Jen had mentioned, we currently use a platform. It's known as Canvas. So folks might be familiar with it. Previously, I think we transitioned from I forgot what it was called, but regardless, it's the virtual time, electronic learning. So through Canvas, different UW systems kind of have different platforms, meaning different settings, options they have, and, things they can use. So what's really good about Canvas is, obviously faculty can post, the information they need, and then students can use the resources that's available to them. One of the things that I kind of discovered early on was the settings. So, of course, we always want to personalize something. We always want to make it, much more kind of us. So it's why not represent us, have something that truly speaks to us. So within the settings, they initially had this very small list of pronouns. So truly not a lot of options. Most of it was kind of following the binary. So with myself kind of becoming much more comfortable in who I am and being comfortable being a queer person of color here in Milwaukee, and especially at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and at the School of Public Health, I've reached out to Jen. So Jen has been like my pivotal piece to trying to get things going. Also a fellow advocate in everything that we say, we do. We're queer and we're here, so we're not going anywhere. So with that, reached out to Jen, and she kind of connected me to other people who worked within the UW system, and kind of got some changes that were kind of going. At first, there was a little bit of pushback. Well, not necessarily pushback, but I guess just trying to hurdles we had to work through. So then with that, with advocacy and all of our diligence and all of us like expressing like this needs to change, we finally adopted those changes. So those kind of came to fruition in January when it like started to get, in phase 1. And then I think it fully implemented in March. So now there are so many options we have to where people can truly select for how they identify, right now, how they might identify in the future, and all those other pieces. And especially for me, is critical because, like I said, I use he, they pronouns. So it was amazing.
That is amazing. I love that so much. So may either of you please tell us more about your campus's LGBTQ plus inclusive policies, and how do students on campus feel about such policies?
Oh, that's an excellent question. So we actually have a lot of administrative support, and we're really fortunate. We have a Chancellor's Advisory Committee for LGBTQ plus advocacy, and I happen to be able to serve as the co-chair of that. And Michael's actually a PhD student who's going to be hopefully serving in as a graduate student in the future year or the coming year on this committee. But this committee has really helped us to drive at all levels of the institution change that is systemic and structural. So it's really benefiting LGBTQ plus students. So that includes our inclusive facilities policy, making sure that all renovations and remodeling projects really seek to have restrooms that are able to be utilized by people of all genders, and following kind of a national movement and a campaign of Safe Place to Pee. And so we have inclusive facilities as being a highlight. We also have a syllabus policy that has recommendations for faculty to be able to put their pronouns, and also to encourage students to be able to share their pronouns as part of introductions, just so that people feel like they're being affirmed in the classroom, and they're not feeling like they're singled out as a result of sharing pronouns. We also have had success. We were the first UW system school to have a inclusive housing policy, and so that was a huge point of pride for us, and a lot of excitement there. And recently we were featured, our athletics department received a score of 90 in the Athlete Ally program that is also done to talk about featuring LGBTQ plus inclusivity. And our women's soccer team had a representative that was quoted in our press release, and that student is currently at our Horizon League Championship. So pretty exciting to see that there's work that is being done, and that there are students who are feeling included and welcome across the spectrum with a variety of policies. I will say that there's always more work to be done. So that's the beauty and both the beauty and the challenge of this work, is that we always have things that we're working toward. And so a recent win was actually being able to have a double-sided IDs, so that students could have their name in use on one side of the ID, and it coincides with our preferred name system. And so these are all systems that are being implemented across our campuses. We have a set of branch campuses that are in different counties, and so it's helpful because it makes it more inclusivity and more expansive and more broad for LGBTQ plus students to learn, live, and grow.
Amazing answer. Double-sided ID is really creative. That's a really cool idea.
Yeah, it was really helpful. We had a great partnership in terms of like making sure that like our campus safety was there, and they were really creating the double-sided ID to have it be something where students would not have to necessarily be outed, but they'd have an actual legal ID, but that will also have the name that they want to be using on our campus be respected and honored.
Yes, that's really cool. So in either of your opinions, why does your campus feel the need to provide spaces and resources for LGBTQ plus students?
So I can jump on in this one again. So in terms of engagement with LGBTQ plus students has been steadily increasing year by year, and so we are even though we've had enrollment decreases as a result of the decrease in the student population, those that are of a traditional age that are attending college. And so even though our overall student population has maybe been decreasing, we have seen a steady rise in the LGBTQ plus student population. And I believe that Generation Z has demonstrated to us that they are the generation that want to see LGBTQ plus inclusivity be centered, and the lived experiences of LGBTQ plus people be in the center of the ways in which campuses, policies, practices are operating. And so I would say that, being the first campus in the state to have inclusive housing, also the first campus in the state to have an out in sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics chapter. I think that like the OSTEM chapter and the recognition that those students received, there's just been a desire from students, and our office is all about centering students as a result of being positioned in the Division of Student Affairs. And so there's a lot of institutional support, as well as that direct influence and connection to the chancellor, coupled with the student activism and the student advocacy and the student engagement that I think brings us into the beautiful mix of why there's a need for not only spaces, but also just places, and in virtual places as well. So I will say that we have had a very engaged community in a new way in the last year that has really brought to light the necessity of community building and fostering a sense of belonging, which is what I believe the work of the LGBTQ plus Resource Center is all about.
Amazing answer.
Thanks.
So how do LGBTQ plus students get involved on your campus? And do you have any active out LGBTQ plus student leaders on campus?
Michael, take it away. This is you.
Yes.
All you.
Yes. So one, excellent question. I really appreciate this. But of course, first and foremost, I need to say a huge congratulations to Jen. Without her, I don't think I would kind of be where I am right now. In advocacy, you a lot of times need a lot of, support and a lot of things to kind of keep you going. There is a lot of resistance. So having solidarity is critical. Having love and support is critical as well. So kind of echoing what Jen had mentioned, the OSTEM, which is Out in Science, Technology, Engineering. It's a nonprofit organization. So they have different chapters for, I believe, like over 100 campuses and universities. So as Jen mentioned, UWM was one of the top ones within the Wisconsin chapter. So that's another way students can kind of get involved. Of course, the LGBTQ plus Resource Center at UWM is also another, pivotal piece to kind of have for students to feel welcome and safe. In my undergrad, I will admit, I was a little shy. I was aware of it. I kind of was outside looking in. Kind of through my master's, I got a little bit more comfortable with myself, comfortable with the resource. And that was just, sometimes it takes us introverts a little bit more time to kind of adjust to things. But kind of seeing how everything was truly safe and supportive, having that environment truly instilled every single day, every single email, every single interaction was huge. It truly made us, me and other, queer students of color kind of feel celebrated. It made us feel welcome. It made us feel like we were ready to achieve success. Resistance was not an option. Improvement was the only option. So that was the way we also got connected, is having that interconnectedness with the Resource Center, and then the Resource Center also having interconnectedness with other departments. But I would say too, to the second part of the question, kind of having like active student leaders, as I mentioned before with the UWM pronoun expansion, that was huge. That was critical. I was simply just like asking a question, and Jen was like, let's get this going. So, right away, I'm like, hey, like, let's have this happen. You need people like that to truly be like, I support you without even telling you that I have to support you, because I'm going to support you regardless. That's what we need. That's what the Resource Center continues to do. That's what Jen continues to do. And that's what UWM is going to also continue to do. We're with our advocacy and with our due diligence. I would say another piece as well, something that I learned about is, the Chancellor's Advisory Committee on LGBTQ plus advocacy. So I recently submitted I believe it's called like an application. I mean, yes, obviously it's the most thing, but yeah. So the application, recently submitted that. So hopefully, it will come to fruition, and I will be able to kind of have that next year to kind of participate and be a part of it. And what's really huge and critical about that is truly living and breathing and practicing, inclusion and diversity. So, and by that, we're actually expanding mental health resources and healthcare too for, our trans brothers and sisters, and everything and in between, and everyone who, also maybe having changing identities like myself too. I don't always identify the same day every day. So that's huge to truly be like, we are going to include this, we are going to expand this, and we're going to make this happen. And another critical piece is it makes it happen both emotionally, physically, and of course, mentally. Those are all three key components to our life, right? That helps us sort of keeps us stable within our society today. So, a lot of those pieces kind of give huge health implications. So by having that advocacy committee, it's very key to making us sure like we're doing the best that we can to protect our students. So I think that's huge. And then another piece that I would say too, here at the School of Public Health, being a PhD student, graduating from the master's like in 2020 from it, again, becoming more comfortable myself, becoming more comfortable with being, I'm queer and I'm here. So I'm not going nowhere. I'm coming to steer this. I'm going to let you know how I feel. I'm going to let you know what's going on. Just being intentional. So with that, there are always trainings along the way. And thankfully, again, to Jen, with those trainings, we can kind of get things going and kind of get people to have a sense of raise awareness, to have a sense of responsibility as well. Responsibility to know you need to be inclusive. You need to celebrate diversity, right? Because like we don't really have success unless we have diversity and inclusion. And like, so let's live and breathe it. Let's make it happen. So yeah, that would be me.
I love that answer. That was so good. That was everything. Everything you said was like perfect.
Agreed. I agree wholeheartedly. Michael, I just want to say that you are like an amazing, like the fact that you have been not only a 2-time alum, but you're going to be a 3-time alum and you're going to be Dr. Gonzalez someday. Like it's all going to be so celebrated to just like have you be a leader to showcase to LGBTQ plus students and particularly LGBTQ plus students of color, that there are just like pathways and opportunities that open for you when you're able to be your authentic and true self. And so I really admire and appreciate you sharing in about that.
Yes, thank you. Appreciate that, Jen.
If an LGBTQ plus student has an issue of harassment inside or outside the classroom on campus, how will it get remedied or handled?
Yeah, so that's one good thing about UWM, right? So we have a lot of faculty and staff who, again, we're intentional. We're intentional with what we do. So with that being kind of part of UWM, one of the resources I would say would be the Diversity and Equity Service Office. So with that, it's kind of the fact of implementing equal opportunity for students. It's also the fact of celebrating diversity one more time and truly changing, our institutional climate to be much more welcoming and much more, addressing the concerns that students might have. In addition, we also have the Dean of Students office. So with that, students have that huge support system that kind of interconnects again with like all those other departments, with the resource center itself, Norris Health Center, anything that can kind of be beneficial and to, kind of get everything growing. So it also allows students to file complaints. It allows students to kind of capture and voice their lived experiences, kind of the hurdles they're going through. So I think that's a really great resource to have. And then, of course, too, within different schools of UWM, we also have deans. So my dean has been very generous with their time. So, I have been very vocal with kind of like what's going on, what needs to change, and kind of like, these are my concerns. And, this is not just me as one queer student of color. This is me also bringing in, a seat to the table for other students who are not ready to kind of voice their opinions, right? Again, acting in solidarity, again, showing that we need to have institutional, change within our climate, and we're going to make it happen one way or another. But I think too, there's a lot of other systems that I think Jen can speak to a little bit more.
Yeah, I can just add in that what Michael is referencing is our hate and bias motivated incident reporting system. And that system is actually something that was inspired early on in my career at UW-Milwaukee. I've been at UWM for over 15 years. And so in the time that we started that, it was a collaboration with our Office of Equity and Diversity Services, as well as our Dean of Students office. And they now manage that platform and handle the incidences that come in. And certainly we are involved if it involves a need for there to be some sort of restorative practice or restorative justice work that is done in order to make certain that folks are learning from their errors and the mistakes that they may be making that and blunders that have been harmful and hurtful to LGBTQ plus communities. And I think it's also giving a space and a place for students to really have agency in the process to determine how it is they want the circumstances to be handled, because there is no requirement for anyone to report. And if they desire to have us report as a third party, we are able to do so. And I think that that's an extra advantage to have, somebody be able to report on your behalf if you're a student who is not feeling like you want to have to be taken through a process of adjudication and all the things that would come with with actually following through on filing a complaint or an incident. And so I just mention that because I think that those are it's really extra important, especially given the way that we've seen increases in cyber circumstances where people are feeling like they are getting, bullied and or treated unfairly or unjustly. And so I think, just in the world that we currently live in, there's such an importance for people being able to have their identities be honored and affirmed in the environments that they're in. And so because we do have a non-discrimination policy that protects for sexual orientation and gender identity and gender expression, it is key that our institution has a hate and bias motivated reporting system so that we can hold people accountable and really have there be accountability in our communities to create just and welcoming environments.
Really good answers. Really good. So how's your campus supporting LGBTQ plus students across their diverse intersections of identity?
Yes. So with that, kind of as we mentioned before, with partnership and collaboration, UWM was able to, again, have partnerships with, the LGBTQ plus resource as well as Silver School Public Health. And with that, there was a program known as UWM Pride Discovery Camp. So it's really nice because it allows high school students to truly have a space. So those are, students from 13 to 17 years of age. And it's just a camp where students can truly express their identity, where they can also, have an experience with showing love to one another, receiving love, learning about one another, as well of encouraging, celebrating diversity and inclusion. So it takes an intersectional lens to also include pieces of hey, we need to hear voices from students who may be within a marginalized community, right? And within intersectionality too, we also know marginalization can be compounded sometimes. So there's really just a lot of learning and there's a lot of embracing to truly empower everyone to make sure hey, we are all in this together. You are welcome. You are loved. We are creating this community where we are truly allowing for self-expression. And that is key, right? That's key in today's world. That's key within Gen Z. It's just key within everything that we do. And the reason why it's key is because it allows us to practice and continue evolving our community. It allows us to also expand to other communities. So of course, right, when we expand and we evolve, what does that just mean? It means we get a bigger community, get a bigger network, bigger support system, more social capital. And of course, with public health, that's critical. That's huge for health equity. That's huge for population health. That's also huge for social and environmental justice, right? So everything is just, it's amazing. So, that camp, really applaud it. I'm glad it's going on. Obviously, with COVID-19 taking a little hiatus. However, there are resources that have been provided. But I would probably say that'd be probably the biggest way right now, what we're doing for intersections of identity.
Yeah, and I would add that Michael did a great job of outlining kind of a recruitment arm of what we do in terms of working really with you know, inviting students to see UW-Milwaukee as the LGBTQ plus friendly campus that it is. And then I think by extension, once students are there, we have a very lively group of students who are revitalizing our Queer Students of Color organization. And they just did a really phenomenal panel where they talked about being LGBTQ plus and Black in higher education, and had 4 phenomenal alumni speak to that experience. We've also done some really great partnerships across the UW system, of all of which are members of Campus Pride and have been featured in various forms on the Campus Climate Index. And so I think the beauty of being in the University of Wisconsin system is that we have a lot of really strong advocates across the system, which is why we were able to have the success with the pronouns in use being a feature on our learning platform of Canvas. And also I think it's why we are able to make certain that we're working at inclusive healthcare for trans students in our health centers, inclusive you know inclusive and responsive like mental health services for all LGBTQ plus students, knowing the amount of mental health needs that have arisen within the last year in particular. And then I would say that, like, there's always work to be done. So I think that, like, we've been working with LGBTQ plus students who are living with disabilities, as well as students who are on the spectrum. And there's just a ton of other areas that I think are exciting for us to be opening the doors on. And I believe that there's always that room for growth and transformation. And I see the LGBTQ plus resource center students really leading the way on how we really intentionally allow for people who are experiencing the most marginalization to be centered in the work, in the programs that we do.
Yes, definitely. Amazing answers. Definitely relating and understanding to the various intersections that we all sort of experience in the community is really important. Yeah. So social justice, equality, and equity are constant journeys of progress. What's on the agenda for your campus to improve within the next 2 to 3 years?
I think this is such an excellent question, and I just want to say that we have a ton of partnerships that are out into the Milwaukee community, and that one example I'm going to have Michael speak to, but one that we've been really really appreciative for is our work with Milwaukee Pride. And Milwaukee Pride has worked with us to help make our annual drag show one of the largest shows in the state of Wisconsin, and taking the stage at the Miller High Life Theater. And so I think that when we've had upwards of 2,200 people in the audience for our annual drag show, we've been just experiencing that LGBTQ plus cultural celebration as something that I think was able to happen in pre-COVID times. And so I'm really proud, though, of our pivot, if you will, during COVID, to use the Discord server that we have created for LGBTQ plus students. And we have students who have created like phenomenal D&D campaigns and Minecraft, and they've done everything that like feels amazingly geeky and nerdy, to craft projects, to hosting interinstitutionally with UW-Madison an amazing night of drag bingo. So there's just been a lot of, I think, really creative and innovative ways that we have worked to be both at the intersections, as I mentioned about the programming that we just recently did. We also had a really phenomenal partnership with our Career Planning and Resource Center, who, after the tragic murder of George Floyd, requested that we create a panel talking about being Black and showing up at work after something as tragic and troubling as the murder of a black man. And so that, I think that like that in and of itself was like ways that like doors opened that we hadn't seen open before, and gave full credit to our Career Planning and Resource Center for their thoughtfulness of making sure that they were talking about various identities that were intersecting with the racial identity of being Black. And so I think that there's just a ton of work that is being done. We just like participated in our Center for Latin American and Caribbean Studies has a film festival. There's Women in Film. We've done a lot of different programs. I think our most recent kind of conversation has been around women with an X versus women back with an E again, and a lot of making sure that we're being intentional and really responsive and thoughtfully inclusive of the varying perspectives, but partnering with our LGBTQ plus studies certificate program, which is the longest standing within the UW system, and is a great partner with us in our Lavender graduation program. So I think that we have a lot of different things that we do that I think really do get at creating like socially just and equitable and advancing of what I would say are agendas to really move forward in our inclusivity and truly bring about that authentic sense of belonging for LGBTQ plus students. And so, yes, I appreciate the journey and the progress piece of that question, because I do think it's always a journey, and we're always like works in progress. And that work in progress I see as being something that is inevitably transformative when it comes down to making sure that we're fulfilling our mission to be racially just and to be centering the lived experiences of people who hold multiple marginalized identities. Michael, I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to like the work that you do with Safe and Sound, but I think that that's a really great example of another program.
Yeah. So first, yes, yes, and yes, Jen. Yes to everything. Yes to everything you said. And I think most importantly, too, that I want to point out kind of first right away is all of these pieces are very, they're very huge. They're sometimes a little bit above us, even as much as we'd like to be a part of it. But I guess the one plug or one thing I would want to say is remember to always practice self-love and self-care, right? Because in this journey of progress and in this journey of just like fighting against resistance, it is a lot personally to take on. So just remember to always do that. Also, always remember to reach out to your, social support, your networks and things like that. And I would say another way too, kind of the background that we have today, right? Our pride flag, also being intentional with what flags we're actually using to also have, the black and the brown colors, to also have the trans inclusivity. So using the Philadelphia pride flag, like intentionality, like actually having that, living it and making it happen. I think that's key. But yeah, as Jen said, we had a lot of community partnerships. So in my Master's of Public Health, we had this thing called our field experience. So with that, I partnered with Zoe Worrell. Shout out to Zoe. So they are with Safe and Sound, and they are a local nonprofit here in Milwaukee. So they work with a lot of different zip codes on Milwaukee's north and west side as well. They also have a growing refugee population. So that is also another piece that they attend to. But with that, together, we were all able to kind of come together, form all of our, networks and expand and get all other queer kind of entities involved. So, Milwaukee LGBT Resource Center, Diverse and Resilient, and everything else, right? And then, of course, we also really wanted to capture the voices of people who are in the community, so lived experiences, so individuals like that. But the piece I'm getting at is that we've hosted our very first, which is key, very first LGBTQ plus youth substance use prevention summit. So it was very encouraging to have youth kind of attend. It was also kind of critical to say, hey, those summer camps we're doing, have those kids come along, have them, get involved, have them connect with their peers. So with that also connected us with, the City of Milwaukee Tobacco Free Alliance, which is also focused on health equity and LGBTQ plus inclusivity. So, all of those pieces, and of course the summit itself was a huge focus on health, wellness, and just overall well-being. So that was one key. And then I would say too, definitely here at UWM, we have our very own Norris Health Center. So used it a few times, of course, there it's that too. It's always a journey. It's always expanding and progressing. So with that, North Health Center has been very intentional of actually training their staff and everyone in between to really be trans inclusive with healthcare, mental health resources, and then also just being aware of using correct pronouns, right? Not misgendering somebody, also respecting somebody, knowing your boundaries, so that's key. So again, yeah, that would kind of be where we are at with our journey of progress.
Amazing, amazing, amazing answers, both of you. Great. So what is the queerest or most LGBTQ plus aspect or thing about your campus?
Okay, so I love this question. First of all, I think there's a long-running joke that I have had with multiple people that I've worked with while I've been at UW-Milwaukee that I think everything is queer until proven otherwise, and that's just like a way that I like to say that I think that the world is queer until somebody takes it to the jury and into the court of law, and then maybe it becomes straightified. But that is it's not necessarily about our campus. That's just like a Jen Murrayism. But I would say that intentionality is a big word that Michael and I have been using throughout this interview. And I really believe that we have an intentionality to queer everything. And what I mean by that is to take it out of the mainstream and the socialized ways that we've expected it to be operating, and to truly create an innovative and a way that just allows for it to bust out of the binary, to shape love into all of its forms, and really to be queer celebratory. And so I think that our campus is all about figuring out where the queer celebratory components of our world are, and how we can just truly be queer at our core, with just a love of everything that is not conforming to the mainstream ways of expectation and existence, and that that there is an opportunity for people to just be all of who they are and fully loved and appreciated for all of that. And so that's I think my thing is, queer everything. That's what I believe, and that's how I feel like our office and our work has been operating. Is that it's important for us to put a queer spin and a queer lens on all the work that we do.
Agree. Second, sign, stamp that, approve, all
I
of that
love
above.
it. Yes.
All of that. I would also say too, one of the queerest things, is yourself, right? Saying it to yourself every single day, looking in the mirror, no matter how big or small that mirror might be, even if it's this camera that I'm looking into right now, know that I am here and I'm queer. That is one way, right? Knowing that and stating that as a student on camera that's also going to be on YouTube is huge. So, I'm just letting you know I'm here and I'm queer. So take that. Another piece I would say is, just meeting people along the way. Of course, as I mentioned before, I am introverted. So that was a little difficult at first. But, when you meet people and you start to see other queer people, you're like, hey. So, it really brings, a commitment to saying like, I'm going to really get out there and make sure I connect with other queer students here at UWM so we can start, like literally forming any type of connections we have. And as Jen said too, dismantling that, normalcy of binary. Like we need to go beyond that and we need to truly start shaping our advancements. So yeah, we're here, we're queer.
Yes. And Michael, I just want to add, I think that people and community are the queerest component. So I think that I'm so glad that you said that about naming yourself as the queer component. And I also believe that our community is queer and queer loving. And there's just a queer affinity to that connection of knowing that we can just be all of who we are unapologetically and fiercely, and just creating that celebratory space for all of us. So yes, I'm there for I'm seconding, approving, stamping, and co-signing for all of your statement too.
Yes, that was everything. That was everything. How would both of you describe your campus in 3 words to a prospective LGBTQ+ student?
So I'm going to start us off because I think that the 3 words I would use are, we're heart-centered. We come from the heart, we work with the heart, and we want people to live in their heart space. I also am hyphenating this word, even though I know it's not a single word, but I'm going to call it so chosen family. I think that the LGBTQ plus students oftentimes talk about the LGBTQ plus Resource Center and the sense of connection that they make to community as their chosen family and their UWM Panther family. And so the last piece that I would say is a word that would talk about our campus culture for LGBTQ plus prospective students is connectedness. And we're firm believers that we want you to be connected and we want you to feel a sense of belonging, and we want you to know that you are part of UWM's family and that you mean the world to us, because LGBTQ plus community is what we have and that's what we need to be able to thrive and flourish in the environments that we're in. I know that was more than 3 words, but I tried to highlight them. Heart-centered, connectedness, chosen family. There, you got it.
Yeah, this is a great question, right? It seems straightforward, but it's actually pretty intense. But it's intense in a good way, right? Asking, just a philosophical question of what 3 words describe, our LGBTQ plus perspective here. So I would say, definitely speaking from my student perspective, I would say we're going to go with growth. We're also going to go with diversity, and we're going to finish it with intention, right? So growth meaning we're expanding with community, committees. Growth with we're having our student body increasing as well, making sure they're queer peoples too, and then of course diversity within that student body, and then intention, right? Making sure we're capturing students' experience, we're having their perspective heard, and we're actually bringing it to shape our future here at UWM. So yeah, growth, diversity, intention.
Amazing, both amazing. So it's been such a pleasure interviewing you both today. Please share for those watching on your website to learn more about LGBTQ plus life on your campus. Campus Pride appreciates your hard work and continued efforts to create an inclusive space for LGBTQ plus students to live, learn, grow, and thrive at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Your work makes a positive difference in so many lives, and honestly, thank you so much. It was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. We really appreciate your time.
Yes, thank you so much. This was amazing. I hope you have a great day. Hope everyone has a great day.
Yes.
Thank you for watching the Campus Pride Spotlight series. If you wish to learn more about this campus or any other college or university, you can search for free at the Campus Pride Index online at campusprideindex.org. That's campusprideindex.org for over 400 plus colleges and universities that have come out as LGBTQ plus friendly. Again, my name is Ayla, and thank you so much for watching.